For more context on yesterday's testimony, let's bring in ABC News contributor and former Republican Congresswoman from Virginia, Barbara Comstock, also former senior advisor to the Biden-Harris campaign, Adrienne Elrod. All right, Adrienne, never heard before insight and details from Cassidy Hutchinson yesterday. What were your big takeaways?
Oh, listen, I was watching it live, and I thought her testimony was compelling, incredibly credible, and it made sense why the committee wanted to get her out now, while the narrative was in the minds of the American people, obviously coming off of last week's hearing. I thought her testimony was very compelling. And look, it was something that we had not seen yet. You know, Kyra, we really had not heard from anybody who had been that close to Donald Trump, that close to the chief of staff, that close to some of his top advisors in the White House that day on January 6th. So to have not just a credible witness, but a young woman who was willing to come forward when so many other people wouldn't come forward. Obviously, Michael Flynn, we saw him take the fifth on multiple times yesterday during taped testimony. It was just incredibly compelling, and it just validated the notion that I think the January 6th committee has done a great job of doing so far, which is that Donald Trump was aware that the supporters at his rally had weapons. He wanted them to go to the Capitol. He encouraged them to go to the Capitol, and he wanted them to cause harm. And that was what the committee's been trying to validate to the American people. And there was no better witness coming forward yesterday than Cassidy Hutchinson, who was in the room, saw what happened, and could tell the American people exactly the real story.
So, Barbara, how are Republicans reacting to Hutchinson's testimony? And do you think that any of her details will sway diehard Trump supporters?
Listen, I think the happiest person about the testimony yesterday is probably Ron DeSantis, who is increasingly rising to the top of the Republican pack while Donald Trump is failing. But I think it was so important that she gave the details starting, well, I mean, it obviously started before January, but January 2nd, that conversation, direct conversation with Rudy Giuliani, when he said, yeah, the president's going to go up to the Capitol. You know, it's going to really be, you know, wild. And of course, at the same time, you had Steve Bannon pushing it, come to the rally. It's going to be wild. And we know how obsessed this president is about crowd size from the first days of his administration, so that he was back behind the tent. And you can see it from the pictures, I think, in my opinion, where he's looking mad and he's looking at the crowd and he's not happy because they're not, he wants to have the picture. And you saw the real time, you know, text back and forth, president not happy. He wants to have more in the picture. But you also saw those real time threats that were identified by the Secret Service, by the police, saying there are people in the trees, they have weapons. We're taking a lot of weapons away. So you know from 8, 10 o'clock that morning that you had a crowd with flagpoles with spears on them, people who had guns, people who had all kinds, you know, clubs and weapons. And Donald Trump didn't care because he knew they're not out to get me. But then he specifically did what the White House counsel's office told him not to, which was directed that crowd up to the Capitol, knowing that they had all of those, you know, type of weapons on them. And then he told them, hey, I'll be with you. And now we know, yes, in fact, he did want to go up there. And Kevin McCarthy, no less than Kevin McCarthy, is calling poor Cassidy Hutchinson and yelling at her because the president said he's coming to the Capitol. He said, you promised me he wouldn't come, as if a 25-year-old woman is going to control this petulant child that was unfortunately our president. But everybody knew how dangerous this was right from the top, including Donald Trump. That's what I think is the most dangerous testimony from yesterday, because it was also backed up by all those records. So if Tony Ornato is going to come in and testify, I'm not really concerned if, you know, he told her something and she, you know, heard it differently than whatever he claims. What he told the president that morning, according to briefings and the things we saw, was that there were people with weapons there and they were taking away the weapons. Told that repeatedly when the crowd wasn't large. It was because they had weapons and they couldn't let them through the magnetometers. He wanted them taken down. And it does remind me, because as you may know, I worked with the Capitol police officers to get the January 6th committee. And when we met with Senator Ron Johnson, he said similar things to Donald Trump when he said, well, I wasn't worried they were going to harm me. Well, yeah, they weren't after you. You know, Donald Trump didn't tell him, go get Ron Johnson. He was attacking Mike Pence.
So you say something interesting, Barbara. You say something interesting. You bury the lead here. You said that all of this already is having an impact on the GOP, that you see Trump sliding and DeSantis rising. Adrienne, do you agree? Is this an opportunity for the White House, for congressional Democrats, for Dems to get an edge on looking toward midterms, looking toward presidential run? I mean, could this be the moment that knocks Trump out of the presidential talk for 2024?
Absolutely. I mean, you're starting to see that happen in a lot of the races that he's endorsed. He certainly does not have a great track record in this primary election cycle. A lot of the candidates who he has endorsed have lost their primaries. But you also look at, of course, January 6th combined with Roe, combined with some of the extreme positions and rulings that the Supreme Court has taken on guns, for example, on a number of other measures, but most notably Roe. We've seen in the last 2 weeks, depending on which poll you're looking at, and of course, this was also coming on the cusp of when we knew that Roe was going to be overturned. That's why I say 2 weeks. But the generic ballot for Democrats, which is the overall question, if you are a voter, if you're going to vote for a Democrat or a Republican, the generic ballot for Democrats has gone from 4 points under to over 3 to 4 points on top. So that's either an 8 to 9 point swing, depending on which poll you're looking at. I see that only getting better for Democrats. So does that mean that we're going to mitigate our losses in the House? Yes. Does it mean that we're going to hold on to Congress and hold on to the House and Senate? I don't know the answer to that yet, but it certainly is something that Democrats are capitalizing on. And look, we don't even have to do a lot of work on this. Suburban women, voters across this country who wanted to see Roe be the law of land, who are also looking at these January 6th hearings saying, God, this party, Donald Trump and his acolytes they do not stand for my values. They are not the type of people I want in that White House. All of those factors contribute very positively for Democrats. The White House doesn't have to do a lot on this too. If you notice, they have not been very boisterous on the January 6th hearings because they know that this is in Congress's
court. Itself.
They know the hearings are speaking for themselves. Exactly. They don't have to do a lot of work. The hearings are doing the work for them.
All right, Barbara Comstock, Adrienne Elrod, great conversation. Again, thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.